Hey everybody, welcome to another IAEI News Live. My name is Thomas Dimitrovich, and today's not Tuesday for me because I'm recording this, but for you, today is Tuesday, and we know what Tuesday is. It's time for a technical topic. So what I want to talk about today is something that should be near and dear to many of your hearts out there. It's not a new document, but a document that will be entering the process as we speak. And that document that I'm speaking of is NFPA 73, Standard for Electrical Inspections for Existing Dwelling Units. And it all starts now. All right, welcome back. So what I want to talk about is NFPA 73, because NFPA 73 is starting the process as we speak. And I'll tell you, it's a challenge, or at least one of the challenges that we have is when we are looking at an existing installation. So you may take, and dwelling units are a really good topic, and I'll tell you why. When I'm dealing with, when we're dealing with a dwelling unit, homes are going up every day, and they have been going up for quite some time. So we create a very good large number of existing dwelling units that are not held to the same standards as the installation requirements for that we are looking at and considering today. So NEC 2023 is a good example. So we have the 2023 edition out that's going to be applicable in jurisdictions that adopt the 2023 code. But our new construction, or if you're adding things, and it depends on your jurisdiction. So in one state, if I add a branch circuit to a dwelling unit, I may not need any inspection. I don't have to pull a permit. We just do it. In other states, if you're going to add a branch circuit to a dwelling unit, you may need to pull a permit first. So the aspect of what needs to be inspected versus what doesn't need to be expected is a jurisdiction by jurisdiction thing, but you can't take a home that was built in the 50s, the 30s, whatever, and hold that structure to the same measuring stick as the latest edition of codes and standards. It's just, it would be very difficult to keep updating the housing stock to the latest edition. So, and you know this with regard to shock protection, AFCI protection, grounding and bonding, some of the infrastructure changes that are based upon what we learn based on the existing structures that are built, whether they be a dwelling unit, commercial building, or whatever. The statistics driven by those existing structures influence changes to the codes and standards for structures made in the future, right? So it's, when you're looking at an existing structure, in some cases, it would be very difficult to bring them up to the latest edition of codes and standards. So we have to be mindful of that and make sure that we're making the right decisions with regard to those installations. So now we have homes that are being sold and bought. They'll go through an inspection. And in many cases, inspectors that are looking at dwelling unit homes, they don't like to talk about codes, primarily from a liability perspective. When you start bringing in NEC requirements and then the addition of the code that you're going to try to enforce on a unit that maybe when it was built in the first place, there wasn't an inspection, right? So suffice it to say, there are a lot of challenges when you're looking at an existing installation. And that's where NFPA 73 steps in. So I'm going to show you, if I bring up NFPA link, obviously if you're familiar with link, if you basically subscribe to any one of these documents, then it'll be on your radar. But I have NFPA 73 as one of my bookmarked items. If you don't know how to, if it's not in your items to find that, you go to view all publications, just type in the number. So you'll type in 73 and hit enter, and there you go. There's the anything with a 73 in it. So first one on the list is NFPA 73. You can show the earlier editions that are on NFPA link. So you can go back to the 2006 edition. But this is NFPA 73. And this is how we have it laid out. You have Chapter 1 is your administration. Chapter 2 is referenced publications. Chapter 3 are your definitions. Chapter 4, your general requirements. And then in Chapter 5, you have appliances and special equipment. And then in Annex A, you have explanatory information. And remember, explanatory material is not enforceable, but it's there to help you understand. Annex B are your NEC references. Then you have sample ordinance adopting the NFPA 73. So this Annex C, if your jurisdiction, if you say, look, I really like this NFPA document, and I want to adopt this document into the regulations for my jurisdiction, you can use what's in Annex C. And then you have just other informational references. Now, if you go to, for example, if you go to www.nfpa.org/73next next, you'll come to the next edition. And we are currently on the 2021 3-year cycle. So we're looking at the 2024 edition. You can view the public inputs. The public inputs were due June 1st of 2023. That was earlier this month. Now I have view public input, but that's because it may be because I'm on the committee. Now, just a note, I am on NFPA 73, but I do not speak on behalf of NFPA. I do not speak on behalf of the committee, nor IAEI, nor NEMA, nor Eden, and anybody else. What comes out of here started up here, and it comes from the heart. So what I want to do is I'm going to walk down through. I'm going to break a couple windows here with the one stone. And I'm going to walk through some of the public inputs and give you a flavor for, by walking through the public inputs, you'll get a flavor for how the book is laid out, what some of the requirements are, and you'll get a flavor for what changes people are asking for. I'm not sure how many public inputs that we got, but we didn't get that many. So this is a document. It's a relatively short document, but we should be able to cover it in the hour that we have, and we're 10 minutes in. So let's get rolling. Okay. Now I can't show language because it's copyrighted information, but I can relay to you what I'm seeing. So I'm going to do it that way. So I'm going to look at the public inputs. I'm going to go to what we call TerraView. Go into TerraView, and we're going to start in Chapter 1, Administration. Now, I'll tell you what the scope of NFPA 73 is. The scope is meant to provide criteria for identifying hazardous conditions of the electrical systems in existing one-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings, including mobile homes and manufactured homes. So we know this is for existing single-family, two-family. I guess two-family is multifamily. They could have said single-family and multifamily dwellings, including mobile homes and manufactured homes. So I don't know what this first public input in, but it is on this section, and I'm not sure if they're going to strike two-family and just say, look, you covered it with multifamily. But let's take a look. So the first public input, they didn't want to strike two-family. Looks like they are adding the word dwelling units. So they want to say one family, two family, and dwelling units of multifamily dwellings. So they want to add dwelling units. And the commenter is saying that the standard doesn't have information on how to inspect common areas. Ooh, so the concern of this public input is when you're in a multifamily type of application, you have a lot of common areas. I would say maybe some of those common areas could be around swimming pools, could be in waiting rooms, could be in like break rooms type of deal. I'm just trying to think of other examples of common areas. Outside would be a common area. Maybe if you have a laundry mat area, that would be a common area that everybody shares. So this commenter is saying, look, you can do one family and two family, but when you start talking multifamily dwellings, they want to focus it only on the dwelling units and not those common areas. Well, we'll see how that flies. So that's the first public input. So the purpose of the standard is to help us understand how to inspect, and they have testing procedures and practices for evaluating the safety of installed electrical systems within these existing dwellings. So testing, what kind of testing? I'll give you an example, and probably one you may relate to. Do you ever go into like a hotel or one of the, or it could be an older home, but I've seen it more so in hotels, where you put your plug into the receptacle and there's not enough tension on the prongs on your plug to hold it into the receptacle. So that force that is there to putting pressure on the plug itself plays a critical role in ensuring you don't have a hot spot, that you maintain. You don't want the plug hanging out, exposing those now energized parts at 120 volts, right? So now you get into the discussion of, can somebody accidentally touch those and cause current to go through the body? So in any case, that's one. Now there is a tool that they use to measure the strength of that or the pressure on those, on the plug itself, and this standard Nfpa 73 gives you some guidance in that regard. So that's one example of testing something that is existing. So in any case, that's the purpose of this document. They talk about the application. So they're looking for safety hazards, fire hazards, shock hazards. So they cover the principal electrical hazards that you're going to see in a residential dwelling unit. They don't mention arc flash. They do mention shock and fire, overheating, and abuse. So if you see a part of the electrical distribution that, there's no real definition for abuse, but you probably know it when you see it. And then if there's some non-compliance, now the non-compliant installations, that's where you'll get into a discussion and a debate with people who do home inspections. Because for example, if two ground rods or grounding and bonding at surface entrance of equipment, if I go back in time, how we grounded and bonded may be different than how we would do it today. It's hard to justify holding the installation to the latest requirements in the code, AFCIs and GFCIs. If you have an area where we've expanded ground fault circuit interrupters, say we've done recent expansions around around appliances, like all kitchen receptacles being required to have GFCI protection, it may be difficult to retrofit that into the system because of the vintage of the appliances. Say the dryer circuits is another good example. We've had in the past, years ago, they would bond in the dryer the equipment grounding conductor with that neutral because they added a single phase load inside of a dryer for many different reasons. One could be the light in a dryer. The other could be the electronics that they needed to power on the dryer. And they don't have a neutral being pulled to the dryer circuit. So they put that current over the equipment grounding conductor, which violates Article 250, right? So we've come a long way with the latest installation requirements, but it's hard to enforce those on the existing installations. So when we talk non-compliant installations, in many cases, we'll compare the installation to the addition of the code that it was originally enforced to, or maybe should have. Because maybe back in the day when it was first built, there was no inspection requirement. And fast forward 50 years, and all of a sudden, now you have regulations that have been put in place since that home was built, and now you have a requirement to inspect on the sale of the house, right? Or you're doing a modification to the home and you're adding circuits. Now the inspector is going to be looking at the installation with the eyes of the day. So if the house was built in the 70s and you say, well, it should have been built to 70s edition of the code. If I took the 70s edition of the code and walked through that structure and it has never been inspected to the 70s edition of the code, I'm sure I'm going to find violations. So I'm not sure. I have a high confidence level that there's probably some violations that were never caught because they were never reviewed. So in any case, that's what we're talking about. The non-compliant installations can be challenging. All right, so the next public input is on section 133. So 132, so 1.3 is your application. The first tells you the hazards that we're looking for. The second .2 tells you that it's accessible electrical equipment. You don't have to rip open the walls and look at the wiring that's behind the walls. You're going to look at what's visible. Okay, so we had to clarify in this application section that this is for what's visible. And then 1.3.3, where we have this comment on, or public input on, 1.3.3 speaks to removing the faceplates or other covers or fixtures, the luminaire, to identify any hazards. And it says it's permitted. So it's not saying you have to remove the plate cover, say on every receptacle, and look at the wiring installed. You don't have to remove the cover of panel board. You don't have to remove the luminaire from, to see what's back there, like in can lights. There is probably a way to look at some of the wiring. So it lets you know that, you can remove that. So let's take a look at what the submitter is asking here. So they want to add a sentence where adequate protection against shock hazard is used. So this submitter is saying, look, wear your PPE. And I would argue that there's probably a lot of areas where it's more than just wear the proper PPE. So NFPA 70, lockout and tag out, right? It could say establish an electrically safe work condition first. If you're inspecting a dwelling unit, it's probably kind of hard to argue that if you're going to take a receptacle cover off, that you can't turn the circuit off. So safe work practices is important for everybody. Now, I could understand the arguments of the panel to say, if we start isolating individual aspects of NFPA 70E, then does that mean you don't have to establish an electrically safe work condition? Because where it's saying where you have adequate protection against shock. And I don't need adequate protection against shock if I have established an electrically safe work condition. So the language is it's interesting. I like where the submitter is going, but I can just hear the debate in my head at the panel and how that's going to go. So in any case, NFPA 70E is an important document that we need to have a safety plan. As an inspector, as somebody who's going to be looking at an existing dwelling unit, we're going to need to have a safe work practices plan. We're going to have a safety plan that says, here's what I will do, here's what I won't do. And a part of that plan, especially in a dwelling unit, because it is 100% possible, it's unless you have somebody on life support in a bedroom, you probably can establish an electrically safe work condition 99.9% of the time. Granted, there's probably times when you may not be able to. And if you're troubleshooting, obviously you can't. But this is an inspection. So I would expect that the inspection is during that process, you're able to establish an electrically safe work condition and follow that process, follow 70E and your safety plan. And if you're going to expose and look at wiring and installation, you're going to want to take the faceplate off of a receptacle or lighting fixtures, etc. Turn it off, lock and tag it out, verify absence of voltage, do everything, all those steps necessary as part of 70E. So that's the second public input. All right, so let's keep on moving. Inspection procedures. You don't want to damage the existing infrastructure. You have to inspect what you see, not think about what could possibly happen in the future. And then 1.3.6, standard does not apply. So it tells us it doesn't apply to inspection of a new construction. That had to be said, right? Because what's going to be your rules and regulation? What are you going to be following for new construction? Whatever edition of the code that is adopted in that jurisdiction. So you're not going to use NFPA 73. You don't want to use NFPA 73 for recreational vehicles or the factory installed internal wiring and the construction of appliances and utilization equipment. So if I have a refrigerator, I have dryers, washing machines, etc., and it says appliances and utilization equipment, we'd have to look. Let's go to chapter 3 real quick. Do we define an appliance in chapter 3? We do. So an appliance is utilization equipment, generally other than industrial, that is normally built in standardized sizes or types and is installed or connected as a unit to perform one or more functions, such as washing clothes, conditioning the air, mixing food, and frying food, etc. So you get the gist. All right, so now we're into the third public input, which is on 1.3.7. And the 1.3.7 speaks to that it doesn't define the installation requirements that may be there for convenience or utilitarian purposes. So if you're adding anything and you want to put something in for, convenience or utilitarian, it doesn't address that. Let's take a look at what this public input is. Same submitter. They want to remove that. And, that's a very good argument. They want to remove the fact that when it says that the standard doesn't address those convenience or utilitarian items, and their argument is that the section is not very clear on what it's supposed to mean, right? Does it talk about a convenience receptacle, or any other electrical item that isn't specifically required by the NEC? Should it not be inspected? So if I put added receptacles in for, above and beyond what the code was requiring, do I only inspect what the code requires and not look at those other items? If I put GFCI in my living room, on my living room circuit, there's no code requirement for my living room receptacle outlets to have GFCI, but does that mean that it's there for convenience or utilitarian purposes? And should it not be tested and looked at? And if receptacle's a receptacle, should you not be inspecting the tension, strength, and whatnot, and the ability of the receptacle to hold the plug in? Great comments, very good comments. What do you think? So here's what you can do as I go through some of these. Would you vote for it or would you not vote for it? Support or not support? That's the question. So throw your thoughts in the chat. I'll be interested to see what your thoughts are. All right, so we're going to scroll. Now that's all of them in chapter 1. And chapter 1 is administration, so pretty generic, addressing the use of this document, where it applies, where it doesn't apply, what hazards you're looking for, what you're not looking for, all that good stuff. Now, chapter 2 are your reference publications. Very short chapter again for, there's 2.1 through 2.4. So pretty short. You have your general requirements, or your general statement there. And then you have your NFPA publication. It references NFPA 1. Oh, it's just that not NFPA 1, that it's National Fire Protection Association. It gives you their address. NFPA 70 is the publication. NFPA is, sort of that organization that doesn't own it, but just ushers it in. It's a public document. Other publications. Oh, they call out Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 11th edition. There it is. 11th edition. I bought this. We were debating on panel 2, and we were getting heated, and I wanted to make sure I was looking at the right edition. So that's it. Merriam-Webster's 11th edition. This is your reference, and it's the that's all it says is 11th edition. So you should have a copy, especially if you get into a debate with somebody, because then you can quote straight from here, and right there it's in the document. And then there's references for extracts in mandatory sections, NFPA 70, the 2017 edition. And this is the 2021 edition. I don't know why we didn't update that to the 2020 code. It should say NEC 2020. That could be a committee change. So we're going to have to, I got to keep notes. Got to keep notes. Got to take care. Hold on. Let me, thought I had a notepad here, but apparently I don't. Well, you know what? Here, I am going to open up a notepad, and I'm going to write this down. NFPA 73. So I can make a committee and put 2.4 update to 2023 edition of the NEC. So that's the first item up for bid. We're going to have to make sure that happens. All right, so chapter 2, the public input that we have. Did I read it? No, I did not. Oh, look at this. Oh, we have public input. So that same submitter said, hey, let's update these to the 2023 edition. It would help to look at the public inputs before I go hunting for a notebook. All right, so yes, we're going to have to update those. Great public input. Let's take a look at definitions. All right, so again, here they tell you that the definitions in this chapter apply to this document, but it also says that the Merriam-Webster's Collegiate Dictionary, 11th edition, shall be the source for the ordinarily acceptable meaning. So it says, I can make sense. Yep. So it tells you that where terms are not defined in this chapter or within another chapter, they shall be defined using the ordinarily accepted meanings, and it put this in positive text. So I guess this is one of the few areas where an external document is being enforced. So, but there are no requirements in a definition. So anyway. All right, so now chapter 3 is definitions. You have the AHJ is defined, listed is defined, standard is defined, and then 3.3 goes into your general definitions. And the first one up for bid, drum roll please, look at the first public input. This is on accessible as applied to equipment and accessible as applied to wiring methods. Oh, okay. So what the submitter's doing here is simply updating the definition of these two terms with what is in the 2023 code book. So accessible is that capable of being reached for operation, renewal, or inspection. And then that's for equipment. And then accessible as applied to wiring methods. So they removed a comma in between finish and or. So instead of saying, damaging the building structure or finish, comma, or not permanently closed, etc., it says damaging the building structure or finish or not permanently closed in or blocked. So they added or blocked. They removed a comma, and then they added other electrical equipment, other building systems in there as well. So that just brings the definition up into an alignment with the code, and there are brackets there. So whenever you see brackets, and when I say brackets, this is what I'm talking about. When you see a bracket like that, bracket 70:100, what that means is that is extracted text from NFPA 70, which is the National Electrical Code, and it's from Article 100. So that is indicative of extracted text. So what the submitter did was basically say, look, if you're and you saw it wasn't underlined, so it's not new that this is supposed to be extracted text, and he just brought it up to date. So thumbs up or thumbs down, how would you vote? Let us know in the chat. As we go through here, let me know how you would vote. All right, so 3.3.2 appliance. So 3.3, what's 3.3? The title of 3.3 are general definitions. Okay, so and now we're looking at the definition. Ooh. Oh yeah, they're looking at the definition of an appliance. It says it's extracted text, and all that they're doing is bringing it up to date with what's in the 2023 code. They're saying fastened in place, stationary, or portable. They're adding that information. And instead of saying standardized sizes or types, it's saying a standardized size or type and a standardized type. So instead of saying built-in standardized sizes or types, it's built in a standardized size or type. So just rewording that sentence. But that's what's in the 2023 code. And he's bringing it up to date. Up or down, let me know. All right. The next one, definition, is on 3.3.6.1. So 3.3.6 is titled conductor. Dot 1 under conductor is the grounded conductor. Dot 2 is the grounding conductor, equipment grounding conductor. Dot 3 is the grounding electrode conductor. So I think I know what they're going to do. I'm not going to guess. The public input says, ooh, they're adding an informational note to grounded conductor, which is saying that although an equipment grounding conductor is grounded, it is not considered a grounded conductor. So again, what it's doing is now this is extracted text from 70. So this submitter is saying we need to update the definition with what's in the 2023 code. But teaching moment, the grounded conductor is not the same as the equipment grounding conductor, right? That bare copper conductor. So the informational note that was apparently added in the NEC states that although an equipment grounding conductor is grounded, it is not considered a grounded conductor. I've heard people say there's a difference between what's grounded and grounding. So, but we could then get into the argument that it's probably bonding, but I'm not going to go there. I love that. Don't you love when people say, I'm not going to go there when they already went there? Think about it. So let's go to the second public input that is in this same area. It's on the equipment grounding conductor. And again, they're bringing it up to date with the 2023 code. So, wow. TerraView really hammered this one. The way it reads right now, it says the conductive paths installed to connect normally non-current carrying metal parts of equipment together and to the system grounded conductor or to the grounding electrode conductor or both. And the change is a conductive path that is part of an effective ground fault current path and connects normally non-current carrying metal parts of equipment together and to the system grounded. So, all right. So they reworded the entire sentence, but what TerraView sort of, the language is screwed up in TerraView. So some things are underscored that probably shouldn't be. Suffice it to say, they're updating to align with the 2023 code. Up or down? Let me know. Vote yay or vote nay. All right, next we get into feeder, the definition of, I believe, a feeder. Yes. So what this one's doing is it's adding the paren or the bracket 70:100, which was not there before, but I'm assuming here that the definition is identical to what's in the National Electrical Code. So we would have to check to make sure, and they're just putting the brackets at the end. So this public input is simply adding a bracket at the end of the definition of a feeder. So from a code panel perspective, from a technical panel perspective for this, we'll probably have to open up the National Electrical Code and make sure the language is exactly the same. If it is, that's a valid public input. And that's on feeder. Next, we move into grounded and grounding conductor. So again, bringing it up to date, and they're replacing, instead of saying extends the ground location, to extends the ground connection. So they've changed the grounded or grounding definition to align with the 2023 edition of the National Electrical Code. And because these probably weren't touched in the 2020 cycle, because it's still referenced in 2017 up above, there's probably more of this type of stuff. So grounded versus grounding. The next one is on the ground fault circuit interrupter, and I can't remember what we changed. So instead of saying current to ground exceeds the value, it's ground fault current exceeds the value, I guess. So a minor change. You have the ground fault current instead of saying current to ground. You know, it's subtle, but pretty good, important change, I think. That's where my gut's at. All right, let's keep rolling. They want to, manufactured home. Interesting. So they're updating to match the Article 100 of the NEC. They have the reference to 70:501 instead of 550, and they added the right section 1.2.12 of Article of Nfpa 501. You know what they're missing? So look at what they did. It says 70 colon, and they took 550 out, which is the article. Gotta get my code book. All right, so I got my code book. 70 colon 550. $550 is your manufactured homes. So what did they say? Update to match the 2023 code. And let's take a look at manufactured home. Manufactured home. All right, so what they should have done is the 70 has to come out. And the reference, so they modified they made a slight change in the definition, but the NEC says 501 colon 1.2.12. And that's really NFPA 501, not Article 501. If it was Article 501, it would be a section of 501 of 70, so it would say 70 colon 501 dot something. But this is NFPA 501 in section 1.2.12. So you got to make, I see where he's going, and that could have been Tara just doing that one on him, but manufactured home, and then they want to change mobile home as well. Okay, so he's saying update to match the 2023 code, and he made a slight change, but he took out, and it said 70 colon 550.2, because that's where the definitions were. So what he should have put was 70 colon 100, but he did not add the language there for 70 colon 100. And this is this is mobile home. So if I go to mobile home, now this is one where you would say that it would be a, what would it be? It wouldn't be a reject, it would be a resolve, or a reject but C. I don't know. I think it's a reject but C. But anyway. So this is mobile home. So you go look at mobile home, and see, and that's why they removed it. So they removed the 70 colon 550.2 because it's not in the book, but because it's extracted text, he should have added 70 colon 100. That's okay. And it does look identical. So we should be good there. Two more public inputs. This one was on receptacle. And again, bringing it up to the, and there's the 70 colon 100. And bringing the definition of receptacle up to the latest edition of the code. And then the last one in this chapter 3 for definitions is the definition of service. That is being brought up to date with regard to what's in the 2023 edition of the code. Piece of cake. All right, so that is chapter 3. Let's take a look at chapter 4. Got 10 more minutes. Chapter 4 has 2 public inputs. Now, chapter 4 are your general requirements. This is general examination use of installed equipment. 4.1.1 is installation and use. 4.1.2 is deteriorating agents. And dot 3 is unused openings. Dot 4 is integrity of the electrical equipment and connections. Dot 5 is your electrical connection itself. Dot 6 is spacing, space around electrical equipment. And then dot 2, 4.2 is services, outside feeders and outside branch circuits. 4.3 is your panel boards and distribution equipment. 4.4 is overcurrent protected. Oh, there's a bunch of public inputs in chapter 4. We'll see how far we can get. All right, first one is on the installation and use. They want to add all replacement fittings, components, and accessories shall be listed, classified, or approved for the purpose they serve. Interesting. Argument here is inappropriate substitutions. I see. So, good example of this. You take a panel board and say you want to add a circuit. Someone goes to their local supply house, doesn't tell them what brand they have, and says, takes an existing breaker in, and someone goes, hey, yeah, you know what? This one will fit in that slot. That would be ungood. So, in any case, this is section 110.3b reference. So, they're enhancing this to say, look, any of the replacement fittings, components, and accessories have to be listed, have to be classified, or approved for the purposes they serve. And that's not a bad thing, in my opinion. 4.1.1 says this is B, installation and use. Equipment that is listed, labeled, or both, or identified for use that shall be installed and used. So this is a 110.3b. They're making a B. So they have a 4.1.1 B. They're trying to have it match the 2023 code, but the problem with the 2023 code and comparing this document is the 2023 code has a first level subdivision B, installation and use, but we don't put a first level subdivision B because we're following a different manual of style. So this is 4.1.1 is still appropriate. So we can't call it B, but we can update the language in the positive text and the informational note to align with 110.3b because it was previously identified as extracted text. So I get what you're saying, but we just can't call it B. So good catch on that one. 4.1.4, oh no, actually this is 1.5. This is your electrical connections. Conductors, dissimilar, intermixed. So they're removing conductors such as copper and copper. So, okay, and in the code, in 110.3b, we removed the paren content that talks about what is a dissimilar metal. And the paren said that copper and aluminum are dissimilar. Copper and copper clad aluminum, or aluminum and copper clad aluminum. So it's trying to remove that parens to align with the 2023 code. So that's all that's doing. Let's take a look at, new content. New content, a new section. They didn't give the section a title, but 4.1.7 would be, I guess, what they would want. And it says where foreign piping is visible over equipment such as panel board, or where there's evidence that the equipment has been exposed to leaking, shall be protected by a barrier. So they want, this is similar to what's in 110.26e. So they just want to provide some protection there. I can get it. I get that. And to the same section from the same individual, electrical equipment that is fixed or stationary shall be supported securely. So they want to add another in 4.1. Say 4.1.7 and 4.1.8. All right, I can buy both of those. What do you think? Thumbs up, thumbs down? And then in 4.2, which is services, outside feeders and outside branch circuits, they want to add a new section after 4.2.1 where interior water systems mix metallic and non-metallic piping or tubing. They want the short metallic sections that are, like, for example, fed individual plumbing fixtures shall not be required to be bonded. Where longer metallic water systems are interrupted either by non-metallic pipe, etc., bonding jumpers shall be installed. So they're saying, look, if you add, say, an existing dwelling unit, say it was all copper, and you removed, I don't know, you were refinishing or doing your kitchen, and let's say that in that process you had maybe a conductor, or not conductor, a pipe, water supply pipe that you rerouted, and you went from copper to plastic, plastic to copper. They want to put a bonding jumper in to make sure that there's a bonding jumper. Here's the challenge with that is a lot of that's probably going to be behind the wall and you're not even going to know it, and you're not required to remove the wall to expose it. That's a tough one. What do you think about it? You think that requiring those bonding jumpers in accordance with NFPA 70, and it doesn't even say the section number. I get where he's going. I understand the concern. You want to make sure that it's all bonded together, because if you're using the pipe as you're bonding up at whatever you're going into, and you don't have that, I don't know. Verdict's out for me. What do you think? How about the next one? They want to add in 4.2.5 where it says service conductors, outside feeders, blah, 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 blah. They want to add swimming pools, fountains, and similar installations to prevent accidental contact. So service conductors, outside feeders, and outside branch circuits shall have the required clearances above roofs, from ground, from building openings. They want to add swimming pools, fountains, so this is clearances. So if they're going to inspect the existing dwelling unit and you have outside feeders and service conductors that are hanging lower than what they should be over a swimming pool, for example, or a fountain, then they want you to correct that. All right. Here's another one. In service entrance equipment, cables, raceways, or conductors, they're not permitted to show evidence of physical damage. And this submitter wants to add intrusion of foreign materials into that list. So this person made a few public inputs around when you have like solid dust or leaking water, etc. So they want you to look for intrusion of foreign materials. One of the areas I would say I've seen that before, outside panel boards where you have rodents, like, an ant is not a rodent, but I don't know, you have ants or spiders or whatnot, that, especially ants like dirt daubers and whatnot, that get in that panel board, or bees, right? Hornets, things like that. You don't want intrusion, and I would say, a bee's nest, a hornet's nest, all of that is foreign material. Interesting. Now we're down into panel boards and distribution equipment. They want to make them readily accessible, and then they're adding in, after January 1st, 2030, they shall not be located in any bathroom containing a shower or tub. I'm going to get on my bandwagon on that one. I personally, in my opinion, I don't understand why, especially in a dwelling unit. Why can't I put a panel board in a bathroom? I mean, if I'm worried about water and humidity, I permit panel boards outside, as long as I put the right equipment listed for the application. Why do I care? So some of the debates were that, well, what if somebody's in the bathroom and I need to turn a breaker off? Well, wait till they get out. It's a dwelling unit. I don't know. That's my head. I just don't get it. If I can put if I have the right enclosure in a bathroom for a damp or wet location, why can't I put the panel board there? And if I have the right working space and I meet all the other requirements, you have to have a big bathroom because you have to have the working space requirements in front of that panel board. But I don't know. I'm not going to go there, even though I already did. All right. How about all metal parts shall be effectively grounded or bonded using approved fittings. They want to add in 4.3.5 the grounding continuity of accessible metal parts of electrical equipment that is outdoors or that is subject to vibration shall be verified. So what this requirement would want is to verify continuity of the grounding and bonding, I would say, for accessible metal parts of electrical equipment that is outdoors or subject to vibration. Now let's take a look at the substantiation. It says this was rationale. So tragedies have resulted from failure of ground faults to trigger overcurrent devices without adequate grounding conductor continuity. This was the rationale behind the 2020 changes to NFPA 70 in 210.8a, adding GFCI requirement for other wet location outlets. I was told that subsequent informal research across the U.S. confirmed that it is not uncommon for grounding conductors associated with such equipment to lose some or all of its integrity. Interesting. So this submitter is saying, look, we should measure and verify the integrity of the grounding and bonding. But he's only targeting accessible metal parts of electrical equipment that is outdoors or subject to vibration. That's interesting. And then what do you do if it's not? But that's I like that. I think I do. 4.3.7, the marking. What do you think on that last one? Up or down? Verifying the integrity of the equipment grounding conductor on outdoor circuits or anything that is vibrating. Interesting. The marking shall be capable of withstanding an environment. So this is 4.3.7.2. And it says withstanding the environment involved. And it says they want to add withstanding the environment, remove the word involved to say withstanding the environment where the disconnect is installed. Just a different way of saying the same thing. The next one is in the same section. They want to add a new section after 4.3.7 and say each disconnecting means shall operate freely and shall disconnect and reconnect the associated load. So they want you to cycle the disconnect and make sure it runs and make sure it functions. So I guess I can buy that. There's substantiation, so we need to be confident that the mechanism is not frozen, where a circuit breaker's handle may well not have been budged from the on position for a decade or more. All right, yep, they want you to cycle. So that's more, honestly, that's more maintenance. This is not a maintenance document. But it is verifying that something is functional. I don't know. What do you think? Should you have to operate disconnects, and for that matter, circuit breakers, as part of an inspection? Oh, well. How about 4.4.1? Overcurrent devices shall be rated and they want to say to protect the conductor under the conditions of use, instead of be rated for the conductor under the conditions of use. So if what we're focusing on here is to just protect the conductor, then you need to have the ampere rating. But what about interrupting ratings, all that jazz? Well, and the justification was the wording seems clearer than saying for the conductor. So he's just trying to add clarity and not change the requirement. This is in 4.4, overcurrent protective devices. The next one in 4.4 is dealing with, and the equipment to which they are secured shall not be loose, corroded, or otherwise deteriorated. So this is looking at the equipment for which they are secured. So this is the connections and terminations of overcurrent protective devices and the equipment to which they are secured. That's the new language. Shall not be loose, and they added corroded, or otherwise deteriorated is added language as well. Oh, actually, corroded was there, so they're just saying otherwise deteriorated. That's the added language. So that's sort of, it gives you a flavor so far of what's occurring on NFPA 73. There are more changes. I am not going to be able to get through all of them. Go out to NFPA 73/new. I'm sorry, next at www.nfpa.org/73 That'll get you to the next edition. And I think you might be able to see the public inputs if they're published, I believe. Well, hold on. Let's go back. I'm going to go back. Let's do this. I'm going to type it in here. So www.nfpa.org/73 next. And you have to type it correctly. And instead of nexer, put next. Type enter. And there it is. And see, I can see public inputs. And it says first draft report posting date is March 21st, 2024. So we're going to be meeting here soon. I'm not sure what, I think they set the date, but I'm not sure. And then once we review the public inputs, we'll post the first draft, and then you can comment on it and become a part of the process. And then it will be ushered in for the 2024. No. Or is it the 2025 edition? That's a good, yeah, it's the annual 2025 edition. So it's not going to be 2024. It's this, the 2020, it'll be the 2025 annual cycle. That's interesting. So anyway, NFPA 73, great document to download, take a look at, especially right now because we're entering the code cycle or the revision cycle for this document. And I would bet that if you, the technical committee, the staff liaison is Christopher Kowash, and if I were hazard a guess, if you contacted NFPA and said, I want to be a guest at the first draft meetings, let's see. If you go to the next edition, no, they didn't. They haven't published. They haven't published the meeting notice for the first draft. So, in any case, when they publish that, what you would want to do is there will be information that says if you want to attend, to contact probably Sarah Caldwell. I don't know, but in any case, you will be able to reach out to NFPA and say, I'd like to be invited as a guest And then I'm sure these are going to be virtual meetings. Task groups are being formed right now to address these public inputs. So Crystal Hunter is the new chair of the committee. So that's where we are with the committee. And NFPA 73 will begin the next cycle. I look forward to your public comments now because you can't make public inputs anymore. All right, well, hopefully you got a little bit more of a flavor for NFPA 73. And hopefully enough that maybe you want to get engaged or buy a copy so that you can take a look at it. And if you are already a member and you purchased NFPA link, all you need to do is navigate to the document, make it one of your favorites, and have a gander at it. Read through it. And once you read through it, apply it if you can. Even in your own home. Think if you were going to inspect your own dwelling unit, this is a good document to take a look at. And then that might help you generate ideas on how to improve the resource. All right, everybody, thank you for joining in. Hopefully you made some comments down below. I will try to tune in if I can on my phone as this goes off and engage to any level that I possibly can since I am going to be out of pocket. So again, this is a recorded session. I really appreciate you tuning in. I thank you for what you do for the electrical industry and for IAEI and for electrical safety. Remember to stay safe and stay healthy. We will see you next week, next Tuesday, for another edition of IAEI News Live. Thomas Dimitrovich here, signing off. See you next week.